Alright, so we're back again this week for what ended up being kind of a bleak episode, which I suppose after the last one ended, it really isn't all that much of a surprise, but it was kind of like, I don't know about anybody else, I know this is a show that tends to be very definitive for the most part about the choices it makes, but even so, I guess being such a main character, or because I was so kind of, unsatisfied with exactly how it went down, a part of me was kind of thinking, well, maybe Ray isn't dead. I mean, he was laying there perfectly still with his eyes open, bleeding out. But you know, it was just a small piece of glass, surely in a major place in your neck, sure, but still, the way the episode just kind of ended, maybe something will happen. So, the opening shot fades in, and there is Ray with all the color drained out of him, and the flies gathering around, and his eyes haven't moved. So, that put that to rest real quick. And see, I mean, I never thought, I didn't really think that he would actually, you know, I don't know. Just something inside me was kind of like, well, I don't know, did they really make that decision? The thing here is that I'm just so kind of messed up by all the shit that likes to do stuff like that and then back down, where this show doesn't back down. So I'm just kind of, my mind is corrupted by that bullshit, you know, like X-Men movies and shit where just nobody ever actually dies, and a lot of really shitty TV shows as well. But yes, show sticking to its case. Obviously, we've known for a week now that Ray is dead and we have to move on. I have to move on. So, and I did notice, one thing that kind of struck me at the start of this one that hasn't been bothering me yet, and this is kind of the first time it has, and that is when Nikki's arrested at the motel, and it's the housekeeping lady comes to the door, and then obviously the cops are there, and then she tries to escape through the window. Obviously, this is an exact recreation of the scene at the end of the movie when Jerry gets arrested. And it was at this point that I realized I kind of like the little homages we've been doing up to this point, like the little Barton Fink details with the bell and Varga laying down the cloth before he pukes, and all those other Coen Brothers references. The one at the beginning of this season when Nikki kind of did the H.I. McDonough in and out mugshot. But this scene in particular was kind of like, okay, this isn't just an homage to a little detail. This is recreating an entire scene. And I think that might be overkill as far as homaging to the original movie or any of the Coen Brothers work goes. So I think we can probably tone that down a little bit. I mean, I know it makes sense because it's pretty much the same setup, but still, I don't know, I just really feel like it feels a little lazy when you're like, oh, we can just take one entire scene from the original movie and just put it in here, and not just, you know, one little detail or two. So, I was kind of hoping after this they might tone that down at least a little bit and kind of really go in their own direction, especially since there's only 3 episodes left. There's not a whole lot left you have to do to get there, so, yeah. But anyway, the interesting thing about this episode, when I say that it turned out bleak, was not necessarily that obviously everything's coming apart because of what happened to Ray and all that, though I do really like how active the scene is with how the scene is acted with Mary Elizabeth Winstead when they show her Ray's body, and it's there's obviously through the whole season I've been saying I felt like that Nikki had ulterior motives with Ray and that she was some femme fatale, and then once Ray got whatever she wanted, that she may or may not do something to Ray. Well, now I guess I'll never know that, but she still kind of rubs me the wrong way when you think back to their relationship, but it's, I guess, I don't know. I guess maybe she'll say something that alludes to that eventually, but for the most part, I guess we'll just have to go ahead and assume that she legitimately cared for him for the most part, making my assumption quite ironic in regards to what's actually being brought, how the motive that they're giving her to have killed Ray, to use her as kind of a scapegoat. So, but even so, the way she looks at that picture And it's kind of it is pretty ambiguous. Like, maybe she cares, maybe, like, there's an actual sadness and shock inside her. But, yeah, I do like the kind of, I don't know, I still think there's kind of an ambiguity as to how she actually felt about Ray, and I really like the way that scene kind of plays into that. At least that's how I saw it. But then apart from that, the bleakness really sets in with how Emmett and Cy are kind of coming apart in this. For starters, like with the case with Cy, the scene where he actually goes home to his wife and we just see him break is like a really big moment for this character, and I know I've been saying that, especially in the episode where he witnessed Nikki get beaten by Yuri and Mima, it was like, Cy has shown that he initially, when he was behind Emmett and just running this parking lot business, he felt like he was a real tough guy, and he was the one that really knew what was going on. And this whole situation with Varga has just knocked him down like every possible peg that there is, to show how kind of, weak and cowardly he is in actuality. But this scene kind of shows, I don't know, there's a vulnerability here to the character when he's saying stuff like, it looks like my world, but it's different, and how the world is wrong. And you kind of just see this character breaking down, and you kind of realize how human these people are being put in this situation, because when you see the characters, especially like Coen Brothers characters, they're so like they're like their own fictional life, that you tend to kind of not pay attention to the fact that they are legitimately human, that things can happen to and affect them emotionally. Usually, for the most part in Coen Brothers movies, it's very, very colorful characters that ultimately have very bad things happen to them, and the movie just moves on, and sometimes it's even comedic. But here, the characters are put in a really serious place now. Now that with Ray being dead, they realize just how far all of this can go. And then there's the moment when Emmett goes home, and we realize from the beginning of the episode, and then here again, that Varga's basically just staying at his house now. So Emmett's the only one there now, so might as well, and Christmas is basically dead at this point, so there's also, that's kind of the thing, is as someone who's kind of all about, like, holiday seasons and how great Christmas can be, that's all the more depressing here, is that all this is taking place at, like, Christmas time, when everybody's all happy and giving and gracious and all that. And it just adds a whole new horribleness to the terrible things that are happening to everybody, whether it's their own fault or not. But then we get this scene when Varga's basically playing into Emmett's vulnerability, and we kind of see Emmett really coming to terms with what all has happened to him and what all this has become, as Varga is saying this children's rhyme to him. And we're starting to realize that the interesting thing here about the way Varga has kind of slithered his way into this with Emmett is that he's not playing himself up as an enemy to Emmett much anymore. He's basically playing him up as somebody who's, like, here to give him, like, words of wisdom and all that, and it's just kind of like somebody that's there when nobody else is. And it's going to make Varga's job a lot easier to get inside Emmett's head and, for instance, drive him farther away from Cy, as we basically saw their relationship break up in that scene in the car, even though Cy seemed to have him convinced that the only reason Emmett's pushing Cy away is because Varga's putting shit in his head. Still, that scene following, it feels like that Emmett's gonna kind of fully be dragged in by Varga, and then that's kind of where we don't know where it's gonna go. And that kind of goes into what I was talking about last week, where it's like, if you absolutely had to kill Ray in the narrative this soon, you're gonna have to make Emmett a lot more interesting to make up for that slack. And I do think that with the direction they're headed, we could really get that. And I think McGregor's definitely got enough in him to put everything into this character now. Especially since it's the only one he has to work with now. Like, it's almost like free reign now, because he doesn't have to kind of go back and forth. He can now just focus these last few episodes on one character and really, really get in there. And now it's kind of like, And I do love the moment with Emmett where Emmett basically, if it wasn't for Shay Williams being a dumbass, Emmett Stussy would probably be in jail already, because we have this, I know I said this before, and I'm gonna say it again, I honestly don't know if we're supposed to hate Shay Williams' character this much, or if it's really just lazy writing, where, like, it would be so easy for Gloria and Winnie to get through this and get to the stuff they need to find out. If it wasn't for just Shay Williams saying, no, it doesn't matter, no, nothing matters, I'm a simple man, all that bullshit. His mashed potato bullshit. And we really could be going, but his character, like, solely exists to just hold up Gloria and Winnie's investigation and make this show 10 episodes. That's, like, the sole purpose of his character. Now, I'm assuming there's this underlying thing about, you know, like, kind of like a patriarchy, like men having more power over women and all that, but for the most part, I think Shogun's character is just here to stall the plot just long enough for us to get 10 episodes. But even so, maybe there is a theme there, but for the most part, I don't know. I'm like this close to chalking it up to slightly lazy writing, but we'll see what happens. We've got 3 episodes to go. The whole thing where it's when DJ Qualls comes in, and he's getting ready to kill Nikki, and this is clearly on camera, and then it's clearly been tampered with, and he's like, it's a glitch. And it's like, I think there's only so stupid you could make this character that Shay Williams playing before it becomes apparent that okay, somebody needs to do something here, but that comes into play when Gloria and Winnie say, you know what, we're just gonna do this. And that's kind of where, this is the whole reason that Emmett's not in jail yet, because obviously we have that scene when they're having dinner with, or drinks with Mary McDonnell, and he's basically throwing out his alibi before anything has been said. He's not supposed to know that Ray's dead yet. And he's already throwing out everything Varga told him to say to keep himself looking innocent. But, as we've seen, Ray was just the same way. So you can tell they're brothers. These guys do not know how to do this getting away with a crime thing. I mean, they're doing a good job so far, weirdly. Well, obviously Ray no longer, but still, it is astounding. Like, it shows the and I know a big kind of theme in Coen Brothers' work, and obviously we're doing homages here, is that a lot of the characters are idiots, and that's actually what progresses what's going on. And that's the thing here, is Emmett basically made himself look as guilty as humanly possible, and still is still running free because of just sheer idiocy. And there's nothing that Gloria and Winnie, I think, would have put him away right then and there, but obviously they can't because they have to work around Shay Williams' character, and nobody can necessarily know that they're doing another investigation. So it's just all a bunch of hold-up. It's all a bunch of obstacles and a whole bunch of stupidity. That probably is 85 to 90% intentional on the writer's part, but still, it can all be kind of frustrating if it wasn't the characters. It would be incredibly frustrating if the characters didn't make it work so well, and we didn't love watching them so much. And speaking of the characters, let's go back to DJ Qualls here, who just waltzed right into this story. And he actually got me thinking about something, which was, I feel kind of stupid that I didn't really think about this before, because I'm sure it's probably been getting discussed to death since episode 1, but for some reason, usually I'll be one of the first to pick up on something like this, but it never really, I guess it just never really crossed my mind, but, the whole idea that this whole thing got kicked off when Scoot McNairy accidentally killed Ian Stussy. So, but then you look back and you think, well, we never actually saw him do that. We know he was murdered. We know his, nose and mouth were glued shut. But we never saw Scoot McNairy do that. And he seemed possibly a little inept to pull off a murder like that. So this other killer walks in, DJ Qualls, with the precision of using a syringe with God knows what in it. So the question is who does DJ Qualls work for? You could debate this all day, but it's probably Varga. But then the question is, what exactly did Scoot McNairy do when he went off and did whatever he did? I don't know. Maybe it is as simple as Scoot McNairy killed him, and there's really no other party involved here. But obviously there is another party involved here. Number one, because we've never seen DJ Qualls before, so we have no idea exactly where he comes from. And secondly, if I'm not mistaken, there seemed to be, when, at our ending, when the transit bus crashed, we get our fugitive scene. Where you knew it was going to happen because if you've seen any movie in your entire life, or really anything, you know that if there is I said transit before, I meant transport. If you see a prison transport bus, and we stay on it for a little bit, no matter what story you're in, the fucking thing's gonna crash. That's all there is to it. There will never not be a transport bus we spend more than 30 seconds on that does not crash. And sure enough, Fargo held up its end of the bargain with that. So when it crashed and Yuri and Mimo came on, I was thinking it was kind of hard to tell, but I'm pretty sure there was a third person there that we could not see. And people probably speculate that has something to do with who Nikki sat down beside on the bus, who I believe was the deaf guy from Season 1. I think it'll probably be played up that is he going to be... Because they made it a big... the music made it a big deal that she was sitting beside him. And people will probably speculate that maybe he'll figure into this story and maybe has something to do with it. He could have been involved in the breakout, or it could just be a cameo, because when the bus crashes and then he's gone, obviously it could be just he escaped. He escaped in the hullabaloo. The end. Because you would think clearly they are here for... I mean, they could be doing... I'm sure they're doing multiple things at once. God knows what Varga has going on, apart from just this. So it could be like two things colliding, but for the most part, I would think they're probably there for Nikki, and Mr. Wrench, I think is his name, would just be like a cameo or something. I could totally be wrong. He could be a totally big player in the next 3 episodes, but I'm gonna bet that it was just kind of a, hey, there he is and there he goes thing, just to kind of connect our stories once again. So... that's, yeah, and then, I do kind of like the bit of bookending here with, obviously, take out the introduction with, Varga opening the presents, which is a really cool scene. We opened on, Ray laying down and dead, and I kind of like, it's almost kind of sweet in a way, actually, that we start this episode with the image of Ray laying down, and we end with the image of Nikki laying down. Though the question now is, what in God's name is going to happen to her once Yuri and Mimo have her out there. Also, to go on Yuri, one thing I forgot to mention, when he goes and he gets Enos's file, is a really good scene too. It's very much like the scene with Anton Chigurh in Stephen Root's office in No Country for Old Men, when the guy's just standing there and he says, "Are you going to kill me?" And Chigurh says, "That depends. Do you see me?" And that's basically exactly what Yuri does here. And I really liked this scene, not just for the way it built and the way Yuri kind of got a nice big scene here, but one thing I really like that kind of shows how this show, it's a very, very small thing, but it's one of those small things you appreciate that shows that this show can just kind of throw in little wrenches into cliches or throw in the unexpected or whatever. And that's just the tiny little detail when Yuri says, "Go ahead, pick up the gun." and we have this just one shot that Yuri's not in of the cop reaching for the gun and then picking it up, and then we cut back. In any other movie or TV show, that cut back would have shown that Yuri wasn't there. He would have just vanished. But I really like that it kind of sets up for that, and then when we cut back, he's still there. It's a very small detail, but it's just one of those things that I like where it's kind of clear. It seemed to set itself up for that very cliche reveal, or lack of reveal, because he would be gone, and he's just still there. And not only does it kind of hint at this show will kind of go against, you know, those little tiny cliches, but it also speaks to Yuri's character too, that he's just here until everything is sorted out. So yeah, overall, it's actually a really a decent episode. It doesn't... The thing here is that you kind of expect the last half of the season to just really, really take off. And while we did have a huge moment with Ray's death, I do like that they're actually kind of playing it slow a little bit, because I've complained before that I didn't think the plot was moving fast enough. But I actually thought it was a really good place here, after Ray's death, to kind of let the characters sort out what the hell they're gonna do. And it doesn't seem like it's in a big hurry to get to these really, really big moments. It's just kind of another short episode, just an hour long, of the characters just kind of slowly doing what they're gonna do, and things escalating ever so slowly. Because that really leaves room for the last 3 episodes to really, really get into the ultimate consequence for everybody in regards to what all has happened up to this point. So, did I miss anything? Or I think that might be it. So, yes, so I think we're really gonna go into some... I'm actually really interested to see where these last 3 episodes go, where it's... Like, at this point, you kind of realize if it's going to lose you or not. And I kind of, like I said, Season 2 kind of lost me in the last 2 episodes or so I suppose the show still has a chance to just really, really shit itself, or it could really, really go out big, which we can hope for. So, we'll see what happens. Obviously, I'm going to review Wonder Woman tomorrow. I already went and got my ticket today, so just to be safe. And then I'm going to do a Versus, like I said, a Versus that was asked for about 2 or 3 years ago that I only just got to, and I apologize to that dude who I'm sure is long since left, but I'll do it anyway. So, yeah, that's what we have. So, until next week, we'll see what happens.